come to Sweden, the third largest country in the European Union. Our country is very long. If you put a needle in Malmö, you see on the map down south Malmö, and spin the country around like upside down, then you will have the very north of Sweden, all the way down in the very south of Italy. So it's both a long and a big country, roughly the same size as Spain. And we have 3 major cities. Our capital, Stockholm, with 2.2 million inhabitants, including suburbs. We have Gothenburg on the east coast. That's where Viktoria is. And there is almost 1 million inhabitants. And then in the south, Malmö, with 643,000 inhabitants. So most people live in the south of Sweden, the southern third of Sweden. So if you draw a line just above Stockholm, you find 85% of the Swedes in the southern part. Above the line, you find a lot of forest and some mountains and some people. But we also in the north have very interesting employers. So I would like you to take a good look at the northern third on the map from Umeå up to Kiruna. And keep that image because I will come back to you later and talk about that. So then we can go to the next picture. And it's some labor market statistics. In Sweden, we have the highest rate of employment in the European Union. 82% of the Swedes work. Our employment rates, like all other countries, the pandemic has affected the unemployment rates, but fortunately not as much as we expected. And right now we have a general unemployment at 9.2% and a youth unemployment at 12%. So then we can go to the next slide. It's about the working in Sweden, labor market information. In Sweden, we have fundamental labor legislation. We have one Co-determination Act and we have one Employment Protection Act. The Swedish model is famous. It means we have collective agreements between social partners. On one side, we have a strong trade union, and on the other side, we have the employers' organizations. And they negotiate all the time. About 90% of all workers in Sweden are protected by the collective agreements. This means that we have a stable and long-term relations in the labor market. Conflicts are rare compared to many other countries. An employment contract in Sweden can be verbal or written. We always recommend the written one to avoid misunderstandings. Since it's many things regulated in the contract. It's the salary, it's the working hours, it's the employment duration, it's the probation period, and the holidays, for example. According to standard working hours, full-time is 40 hours per week. The Working Hours Act rules about how many hours one may work per day, week and year. Overtime is limited to 50 hours over a period of a month, but not more than 200 hours during a year. And here I know that Viktoria wants to say something about the overtime.
Overtime. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ingrid. Yeah, about the working time or the, as Ingrid mentioned, 40 hours is the normal working time. But if you work more than 40 hours a week, you will be paid for every hour. And also when it comes to inconvenient times, so to say, late hours or working during weekends, that's also another additional payment for. So that's good, and it's regulated.
That's it.
That's it.
Yes. In Sweden, flex time is very common. The contract can be permanent or it can be temporary. And we have a minimum of 25 days leave per year and at least 4 weeks continuous leave between June and August. Unlike most other countries, we don't have a legislated minimum salary. And I heard on the news today about the discussions of this. We don't want a legislated minimum salary in Sweden because it works as so good the way we have it. The basic salary is negotiated in many collective agreements between employers and unions. And the salaries are set individually and you negotiate your own. So to know how much I can tell the employer that I want, I can check with the union to find out the levels for different professions. And you have a link on the slide, www.lönestatistik.se. There you can find information, facts about salary. And last but not least, our favorite, the tax. We pay municipal tax in Sweden between 29 and 35%. It depends where you live. The income tax includes all social insurance contributions except unemployment insurance. That one you have to buy separate. It's not mandatory to have unemployment insurance in Sweden. Most people in Sweden pay only municipal tax. It's only if you earn more than 500,000 crowns every year, then you also have to pay some state tax additional to the municipal tax. So, thank you.
Yeah, so about language skills, we do speak Swedish in Sweden, and many citizens also speak English, at least basic, especially when you come to the younger age. Most speak fluent English, actually. So this is why maybe we also think that you might be managing with only English. It depends on what kind of work or profession you will have. The higher profession and the more international the company is, the less important maybe the Swedish might be. But we do, for example, recruit doctors and nurses, and those are high professions, but in those cases we require Swedish as well. And some employers help the candidate to take on Swedish courses and have some kind of introduction also to the to help to learn Swedish easier. But if you're in Italy right now and you're planning to come to Sweden and you want to maybe take some online courses, you can visit the Study in Sweden SE for some suggestions on online courses. We also, besides, I mean, we have low skill jobs as well, but there are very few, and many companies and jobs require that you have at least upper secondary school. And in Eures in Sweden, we work with shorter jobs, and we're divided in different groups, working with different sectors. So, for example, I work in the group recruiting within the hospitality sector. Ingrid works within the industry group. So a lot of engineers is the ones that she come across with and contact with employers within that sector. So these are, you can see here, those are the how to say, the sectors that we work in. So we have both healthcare, teaching, engineering, ICT, hospitality. And of course, we do recruit other jobs as well. So it's not that it's just these, but these are specially targeted because we are in more need of these sectors. And when I write hospitality, you probably know it happened to all around the world with the pandemic. So the hospitality sector has been coming across really rough road lately because of the pandemic. So there we have not recruited at all so many chefs, for example, but it started now in the summer season. And also to mention that we have not had the same lockdown like you have had in Italy or other countries. We had our restaurants and within the hospitalities has been opened since the pandemic start. Actually, the only thing that is a bit different now than before the pandemic is that it's restricted by opening hours. So, for example, the restaurants close at 8:30 in the evenings today. But many hoping that it's going to open up in the summertime. And for that, also many employees want to have staff for the summer. So if you're interested in working here in the summer for a small adventure, you're more than welcome to contact us afterwards. So about Swedish workplace culture and Swedish people. Our organizations are characterized by being flat, and with that comes also the fact that we do tend to have share opinions, and before making decisions, we also analyze and seeing things from different angles and discussing it. So it's a lot about teamwork and coming to a mutual agreement. We do tend to conflict. We're not so much emotional when it comes to discussing and talking about things. Without it saying that, of course, we do share our opinions and our thoughts, but in a very calmer way, so to say, if you compare to more southern European countries, for example. We call each other with first name basis. It's very informal. And this you can also see when it comes to the coffee and coffee breaks at work, that everybody joins in, and it's not just talk about work, it's also sharing your private life together, and what you did during the weekend and so on, what movie you had. At the same time, you're discussing important things at work as well. And it's everybody joins the coffee breaks. It's managers, it's co-workers, and so on. So it's and many who come from abroad and meet this Swedish culture at the workplaces find it most of the time very nice, and they feel quite important to be that their voices are heard as well. It's important as anybody else in the team, so to say. What else? We also have strong and active trade unions and Ingrid were mentioning the history behind it and also how it looks today. We also have representatives at work who have this link between the employers and employees. And when things happening at work, if there are any reorganizations or whatever happens, they are negotiating for the part of the employees. So you also always have, most of the times, somebody representing a trade union at your workplace. Gender equality, we do have some legislation that's supporting the gender equality, for example, parental leave and also childcare. For this to make it easier for women to work, actually. I don't know, Ingrid, did you have a number for that as well when it comes to
our high
child?
our high level 82%. That is one part of it, is the daycare. Because if you always know where to put your children, it's easier to work. And it's financed mostly by the government, so it's very cheap.
Yes, so that's a way to support also gender equality in just in a maybe a different way than we think about sometimes. Be on time. That's super important. If you come here and you have an interview meeting or you have an appointment with your colleagues, or if it's a meeting in general, to be late on a meeting to a meeting is I would say a little bit rude here, especially if it's okay, maybe 1 or 2 couple of minutes, but if the meeting is 1 hour and you come 15 minutes late, then it's not so okay. Well, if you maybe have a very important reason, then of course. But in general, be on time. That's something we would like to send out. When it comes to coming to Sweden work, I would maybe personally I would choose spring or summertime, mostly because it's lovely. We have really late summer nights, and our winters are very dark. So if it's winter, you go to work, it's dark, and it's 7 or 8 in the morning, it's very dark. And then in the afternoon, already by 4, at least where we live. Of course, if you go a little bit more south, it's maybe 4:30 or something like that. But it's and the north, where Ingrid we're talking about later, because we have a lot of employers looking for people there. Then it's dark quite a lot. So then maybe try to take a break during the lunchtime and have a walk outside just to have some light. So just be prepared for that, because that can surprise a lot of people.
Cost of living. Well, 1 liter of milk is like 12 crowns. I think I'm the last adult person in Sweden still drinking milk. So I know about the milk prices. A cinema ticket, that was it seems like a long time ago we could visit the cinema, but then it was like 140 crowns. A liter of petrol is not 15 crowns anymore. Yesterday it was almost 16, but it was 15 last week. So things happens with the petrol, we can say. Lunch out between 70 and 150 crowns, depending on how fancy you want to eat. Commuting costs, different prices if you live in a big city or in a small city, between 700 and 1100. And the same about the rent. It varies a great deal. In a small city, you can find something for 3,000. If you want to live in the city center of Stockholm in a very, very small studio, 10,000 won't be enough. More like 15, I think. But if you don't have to live in the city centers in the big cities, you can find something between 3,000 or 10,000 crowns a month.
Yes, so let's say that you feel like, oh, I would really like to find a job in Sweden. How will I do this? Well, here comes some suggestions of good web pages to visit. And besides these, we're going to give you specific names of a few employers also who are in need to recruit. But if we have a look at the Swedish Public Employment Service web page, it's very good. You have two choices there. One is the second one that you see on the slide. That's more maybe in general information, and you have links there as well that takes you further to LinkedIn, and it takes you to the Eures portal and so on. But the first one is, for example, if you have a keyword that's very suitable for your profession, you can type that down and write it in English, because then you'll probably see some hits that it will suggest you the correct maybe vacancy, and it's probably written in English then. So that's a good way to look for the jobs. And we also have a Eures Facebook page where we also post events, bigger recruitments and so on. So that's also good to have a look at. If you prefer to navigate on the page in English, then we would suggest the Eures portal, because then you can use Italian if you prefer, or English, or any other languages, and search for vacancies, because the Swedish public employment webpage it actually forward all the vacancies that are published on our webpage are forwarded quite directly to the sorry to the Eures portal. So it's very updated, so you can find all the jobs there. Makes it easier maybe to navigate on the language you prefer. We also have the European Job Days online. You can visit there. All the events are published there as well. If you prefer to read and have a look to Swedish newspapers, there's one link there that gathers a lot of newspapers online, so you can have that too. So yeah, living and working, either you can choose the Eures portal where we have it, or you can actually print the city you're planning to move to. So let's say Ingrid lives in Norrköping. That would give us www.norrköping. So no dots when you type it down, of course. So norrköping.se, and then you will enter to the city where you want to live. And most of the times the municipalities also publish vacancies on their own website.
And now we are at the jobs. I work with the engineers and engineering. And in Sweden, we have an innovative and sustainable industrial production at the forefront of development. And that is regardless of whether it's mining, wood, paper, automotive, space, steel, food processing, hydropower, wind power, sun power, or any traditional industrial area. All of it in harmony with the European Union's Green Deal, the ambitious package of measures for sustainable green transition. It's about cutting emissions, investing in cutting-edge research and innovation, and to preserving Europe's natural environment. We have the need for engineers in the whole country, but most up in the north. And then we can go to the next picture. And like most other countries, we need software developers all over the country. If you are interested, please send your questions to eurestech@arbetsförmedlingen.se. And you also find on the slide the address to Sweden's leading ICT environments. It's the 6 biggest science parks in Sweden, 2,400 companies and 59,000 employees. And there are a lot of very nice jobs there to find. And then we can go to the next one. And then you remember the map of Sweden. You can see it behind me here as well. And the northern third. Now is the time to use it, because in the north we had a lot of mining companies. Northern Sweden is rich of nature's resources, and it's now the traditional heavy industries transforms into green production, and it's both in minerals, steels and batteries. So if you want to take part in the highly interesting change, I think you should think about this. In the slide you can see I wrote that Kaunis Iron have a stand at IOLAVORO. They have not. But if you visit the Eures ITALIA stand, you can find vacancies from Kaunis Iron. They are looking for geologists, for example, but also engineers, technicians, everything. You can also Google LKAB, another big mining company, and Boliden. Yes, please. And this is my last engineering picture. Not long ago, only 4 years, a startup announced a bold and simple plan how to develop the world's greenest battery cell and establish one of Europe's largest battery factories. And that is the story of Northvolt. You now find the biggest factory in Skellefteå. It's in the northern part of Sweden. And today they have about 1,500 employees. They plan to recruit 500 persons every year for another 3 years, mostly engineers but also technicians, and they are very keen on recruiting internationally all over the world. They also have other competencies, but it's the engineers and technicians that are most of them. And Northvolt is a great opportunity to be part of the future. And I checked yesterday and they had 273 vacancies in Northvolt in Sweden. And on their webpage, you can create a job alert and they will notify you every time a position that matches your preferences is actual. And you see on the slide also that our colleague Annika Sund is available if you want to ask more questions about Northvolt. And you can also contact Northvolt directly. But Annika can answer more questions about everything around the job. So that was engineering.
Yes, thank you, Ingrid. So besides engineering, we also have an employer who are looking for veterinarians. The employee's name is Annikura, and they have clinics all over Sweden. They're quite big. And this is one effect also of the pandemic, actually, because in Sweden, at least I know, there are more people pets, actually. especially dogs and cats have been increased in that part. And with that comes, of course, healthcare for animals as well. So if you have this profession, you're more than welcome to also have a look at the vacancy we have sent in and published to apply for this job. Besides this, we also have in the hospitality sector, we can say that it's, the need is getting a little bigger now in the summer season, especially around the coast area. So we have, for example, now an employer with 2 restaurants all the way in South Sweden, in a town called Karlshamn. They need several chefs and 1 bartender, waitress, waiter. So if you're interested for a shorter assignment, that would be also interesting to hear from you. We also have a few on the west coast, along the whole west coast, and also in even more in south of Sweden. So yeah, if you're interested, please email to chefs@arbetsförmedlingen.se. We also will give you all the email box names later on for you to write down. And also, we didn't actually go into that before, but just to mention, we were talking about sending your applications and so on. So maybe it's good to know what you should include in those applications. And when it comes to Sweden, most of the times it continues by a cover letter and a CV. And the CV shouldn't be too long. Maximum, we say 2 pages. If you can make it shorter, that's even better. And in the cover letter, try to answer why you're searching, or why you want this job, and why you think they should hire you. And maybe a little bit about what you're doing on your spare time, because we like to know also a little bit of the private life about you. Anything else that should be thought about, Ingrid, when it comes to the cover letter or the application?
Oh, I think you got it.
We can also just mention that you should not send any attachments in form of your diplomas or anything like that, because in Sweden we want those diplomas and documents when you are invited for the interview. Then you can send them, but not in your first application where you show interest for the job. Then you can just include the cover letter and the CV. Yes. So here we have the contact email addresses to all the sector groups that work with the shorted. Okay, that was a bit difficult to say. Shorted professions. So within hospitality, you have the chefs and so on. So please, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to send your interest also, or questions about the sectors as well. Besides this, we would also like to mention that we have colleagues, Eures advisors, working, so to say, online as well. So on Friday, for example, they have always a chat available on the Eures portal. So if you have any questions and so on, you're more than welcome to connect with our colleagues also on Fridays. I think it's 1 p.m. on Friday, Ingrid, is it?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
And
you find
in
it on
case
the
we say wrong, you can, it will say on the chat as well. But it's on Friday, at least that we know.
And you find it on the Eures portal.
Yes. So, sorry, air is a bit dry here in this room. When it comes to target mobility scheme and your first Eures job, it's a European Union financed support or project, so to say. With this, you can apply for financial support when it comes to job interview, language courses, or relocation. If you're moving somewhere and you also have your family along, you can apply for extra financial support for that as well. Or recognition of qualifications is possible to apply for financial support as well. This project or support is divided in two different groups, so to say. One is for candidates or job seekers, and the other one is for employers. I know that this project also exists, or we know that it exists also in Italy. So we know probably that there will be some information about the Italian project as well by our colleagues. So if you would be more interested in finding more detailed information about this project in Italy and, Italian speaking colleagues, then we would recommend you to also visit their presentation to have more information about that. In our cases, our applications are in English, so you're welcome to apply on the link that we have here. And there you can also find a little bit more information about this project, all the conditions, requirements that you need to fulfill in order to receive this financial support. For example, we can mention that the job that you're applying for needs to be at least a length of 6 months, and also at least 50% amount of full time. So in Sweden, as Ingrid mentioned before, it's 40 hours a week. So this means that you have to have a job offer for at least 20 hours a week. And the same way, I mean, if you have plans also to move to Sweden and you think that the chances for you to receive a job is very high, you can actually apply for language courses already in your country before coming here. You can always give it a shot and see how it goes. But hopefully, if you have a profession within the shortage job, then the chances are higher that you receive language course support as well. So we're coming to the end of this presentation. Just to sum up, why Sweden? We mentioned a little bit about the jobs. We have not maybe said so much about the nature in Sweden, and but this picture maybe shows a little bit. I think this is a little bit north up in Sweden. It has a lovely nature. As Ingrid said, it's a very huge area in Sweden, so you can find really all kind of different nature aspects in Sweden. For example, a lot of forest some places, very flat in some other, a lot of water around us, a lot of seas, sea coast, and then you have a lot of lakes as well. For example, in Gothenburg, you have a beautiful archipelago. So it means a lot of rocks and so on. So not so much beaches on the coast of Gothenburg and around it. But if you go a little bit further south, you have really long, nice, beautiful beaches, sand beaches. So you can find really different type of nature. Also, we have something called allemansrätten in Sweden. This means that you have the right to access the nature just as anybody else. Even if it's owned privately by somebody, you can enter there as well. By, for example, if it's a forest, I mean, you can go there and pick berries without any problems. Just leave the place as it was before you went there, of course. So we're very keen on keeping our surroundings clean from plastics and things like that. What else? Why Sweden? Ingrid mentioned a few companies, professional opportunities. We just mentioned a few, but we have a lot of big companies in Sweden. Maybe some of them you heard of before. And also when it comes to salary, it depends, of course. If you compare, some salaries are in general a little bit higher than in Italy maybe, but with that also we have taxes and social security network that will cover you if things happens. Yeah, and we do a lot of sport. We enjoy it a lot. So we hope that you feel that it's interesting to come and join us here. Ingrid, do you have any other suggestions here on why people should move to Sweden?
Because we are nice.
Yes,
we are nice persons. I welcomed a couple from Belgium a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "You are so nice. Everyone is so nice to us." So they really enjoyed it.
Okay,
so that's my contribution. We are nice.
That's a lovely. It's very important contribution, I would say. To meet nice people is indeed when you're new in a country. Yes, I think that's it for us. Thank you for listening. We are finishing a little bit earlier this time. That's good, I think. And in case you have questions for us, you're welcome. We have another 20 minutes to stay here if you would like to send us private messages. I don't know how it works here, but you find our email address here as well on the slide. I thank you, and Ingrid, I'll leave it for you to finish.
Yeah, we want to thank you for listening to us, and hope to see you soon in Sweden or maybe in Italy, whatever. And it was very nice to be invited to this seminar. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.